DSM scrambles to drop 4 cooling towers at Eggborough. We report on the rise and rise of high-rise tower blocks. And there's a big rig down Mexico way. All that and more on the Weekend Wrap. Now, as I said at the top of the show, another blot was partially removed from the UK skyline yesterday morning as the mighty DSM filled the first 4 cooling towers at the now retired Egybra power station. The 90-metre tall concrete structures have been a landmark for more than 50 years, but they brought down as part of plans to redevelop the site after the plant closed in 2018, in line with lots of other coal-fired power stations up and down the land. Now, under normal circumstances, we generally like to add some suitably epic music to these videos, but on this occasion, the blast and the subsequent fall of the towers provides an even better soundtrack. So get your eyes and your ears around this. It's like the sound of distant thunder, isn't it? DSM Technical Director Billy Young said, "We're delighted at all the planning and hard work that has led up to today, as that's enabled us to have a successful demolition. We appreciate that a number of Eggborough residents and businesses could have been disrupted by the work, but we've worked hard to communicate with them behind the scenes to minimise that as much as possible. We would like to thank them and the wider community for their patience so far and assure everyone that we will do all we can to minimise any further disruption." I'd like to say a personal congratulations to the team at DSM for a job typically well done, and many thanks also to Billy himself for sharing the video with us. The combined forces of Brexit and a global pandemic may have impacted the UK construction and demolition industries, but the pipeline of high-rise buildings across the UK remains strong, with around 549 in the development pipeline. Of those, around 58% are in London. Interestingly, although they represent just over half of all the high rises in the pipeline, projects in London account for more than 3/4 of the total pipeline value. The construction of high-rise buildings has increased considerably in recent years, with a rise in both the number and height of buildings being constructed. According to the AMA Research HighRise Construction Market Report, which is UK 2021 to 2025, there are 1,277 existing high-rise buildings and structures that are at least 50 metres tall, and 266 that are at least 75 metres tall across the UK. The vast majority of those are in London, but other key locations include Birmingham and Manchester. Unlike other international cities, London is still considered a low rise for a global city and a financial capital of the world. In fact, the UK has just 31 high rise buildings over 150 metres high, almost half of which have been completed since 2018, and just one building, the Shard in London, that stands over 300 metres tall. Uncertainties surrounding the outcome of Brexit had contributed to a slowdown of speculative new office building in recent years, but industry sources suggest that investor confidence remains high in the London office market, and there are proposals for more high-rise schemes in the city and at Canary Wharf. In both the UK and across the world, there's been a big rise in the number of residential towers, as well as a significant increase in mixed-use towers. Just 15 years ago, towers were predominantly built for the commercial office market, but they now make up just 3% of projects in the current development pipeline. Alex Blagden, a research analyst at AMA Research, says historically high-rise construction has been driven by demand for offices in the City of London, London Docklands, and central Manchester. Since 2020, Since 2010, however, there has been a marked shift towards high-rise residential schemes. In recent years, there's also been a marked increase in the development of high-rise residential towers in the larger northern cities and in Birmingham, largely driven by investment in private rental and student accommodation schemes. Over the medium term, high-rise construction will become more spread out across the UK. While London, Manchester, Salford, and Birmingham will still be important locations of high-rise construction, other cities are emerging as major centres of high rise building activity, especially Leeds, Glasgow, and Sheffield. What does that mean for the demolition industry? Well, all our major cities are pretty much full now, and the erection of any new high rise will also almost certainly require some form of demolition to clear a path, which is great news, obviously, for the demolition industry of today. But is it good news for the demolition industry of the future? And that's a subject we've discussed in the past. In fact, there is actually a demolition news publication on this very subject. You can find a link to that publication in the chat. I'll also add it to the description when we upload this, the recorded version later. Industry experts remain concerned that the developers behind the high-rise structures currently under construction have given little or no thought to how they might be demolished when they reach the end of their viable life. But for now, the continued demand for high-rise buildings will fuel continued demand for city centre demolition work. So no bad news there.
Hi, it's Nick Drew. Well, today I've got a little treat for the fans of the red and grey, because I'm up here in Rochdale, the home of Takuchi UK, and we're here to see the new TB325R, the reduced radius tail swing 2.5 tonne machine. It's brand spanking new in the 3 Series, so let's go and see what it can do.
How do you know when a system is broken? Well, one surefire way is when it's considered newsworthy that the system has become slightly, marginally less broken. According to news portal The Construction Inquirer, the country's main contractors improved average subcontractor payment times by a day over the last 6 months. I know, right? A whole day. It's like Ebenezer Scrooge running through the streets of London, hounding out money, isn't it? On average, the 32 leading contractors paid subcontractors within 34 days, 11 days quicker than when the trade body Build UK first started collating payment data in July 2018. But around a third of those are now paying faster than the government target of 30 days. The promptest payers, according to official returns, are Vinci, Sir Robert McAlpine, Costain, Morgan Sindall, ISG, McLaren, Wilmot Dixon, Volker Vessels, and Robertson. On average, the leading contractors now pay 94% of invoices within 60 days, up from 82% 3 years ago. Now, before we all look to the heavens and give thanks to the God of purse strings, let's not lose sight of the facts here. Under the government's prompt payment code, main contractors are now required to pay small businesses within 30 days. The tightening of the rules for smaller firms last month means signatories to the code will need to demonstrate they have paid 95% of invoices from businesses with fewer than 50 employees within 30 days. For larger firms, clients or main contractors are still required to pay 95% of invoices within 60 days, with the public sector held to 30 days. Furthermore, contractors do not have to take into account any labour-only subcontractors that the supply chain firm engages. So yes, it's a step in the right direction, a small step at that, but there's still a long way to go until this latest fair payment scheme can honestly be described as fair. If you'd like to check out the full league table of the quickest payers, you can use the link that I posted earlier in the chat. Go take a look and see who the good guys are, who the bad guys are, and who the downright ugly guys are. If you knew that a specific element of your working practice was causing repeated injuries or even deaths, what would you do? Would you look to eliminate that working practice to avoid a repeat of those injuries and fatalities? Or would you just have an ambulance on constant standby, ready to sort out those inevitable casualties? I ask because yesterday brought news of yet another sticking plaster solution to the mental health pandemic that continues to grip the UK construction and demolition industry. That sticking plaster apparently is a consistent approach to supporting construction workers' mental health. That's the goal of a new initiative led by the Construction Leadership Council, the CLC, and the Construction Industry Training Board, CITB. That new initiative coincides with the publication of a new study by the CITB that underlines the sheer scale of the issue. The risk of suicide among some site-based workers is 3 times the national average. And a Chartered Institute of Building report found that 26% of construction workers who responded to their survey had experienced suicidal thoughts. The CITB's new research highlights a growing number of good initiatives, but finds that their impact is currently held back by the lack of a coherent aim and message. There is a range of different mental health and wellbeing support available from industry professional bodies, charities, and employers. However, evidence of the effectiveness of that support is limited. Well, pardon my French, but no shit. While the likes of gymnast Simone Biles and footballer Tyrone Mings have raised public awareness of mental health issues, the fact that young male construction workers are taking their own lives in an unprecedented... I'm going to do all that bit again. While the likes of gymnast Simone Biles and footballer Tyrone Mings have raised public awareness of mental health issues, the fact that young and male construction workers are taking their lives at an unprecedented rate should not be a surprise to anyone in this sector. This is not news. It's self-evident. So how precisely is a coherent message supposed to help a young worker who is working miles from his family and his support network, who is uncertain where his next pay packet may come from, who has zero job security, who is considered somehow weak and less manly if he shows even an ounce of emotion? Going back to my original point, the solution to a gaping hole in a roof is not to have a team of paramedics gathered far below. The solution is fixing the hole or devising a working method that doesn't require workers to be near the hole in the first place. Now, I'm sure that the hearts of the CLC and the CITB are in the right place, although identifying a lack of a coherent aim and message sounds like it was written by a PR company and not a mental health expert. That being said, I'm sure that this and other initiatives are not just box-ticking exercises, but prevention is and always will be better than cure. And being better equipped to deal with the casualties will always be a poor substitute for preventing the creation of those casualties in the first place.
If you enjoyed this show, please consider supporting us. Go to buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.